Imagine ruling the largest empire on Earth, an empire so vast that people once said, "The sun never sets on it." Now imagine giving all of that up. Not because of war, not because of illness. But because of love. In 1936, the newly crowned King of Britain, Edward VIII, made a decision that shocked the entire world. He chose to abandon the throne so he could marry the woman he loved, an American socialite named Wallis Simpson. The scandal-rocked governments divided the British royal family and triggered a constitutional crisis known as the Abdication Crisis of 1936. But this story is more than just a royal romance. Edward VIII was born in 1894, the eldest son of George V and Queen Mary. From the moment he was born, his future seemed certain. One day he would inherit the British throne. As Prince of Wales, Edward quickly became one of the most popular royal figures of his time. Unlike previous royals who often appeared distant and formal, Edward had a modern charm. He was stylish, charismatic, and known for connecting easily with ordinary people. During World War I, Edward desperately wanted to serve as a soldier on the front lines. However, the British government refused to allow it. If the heir to the throne were killed or captured, it could cause a national crisis. Instead, Edward toured battlefields, hospitals, and military camps, meeting wounded soldiers and boosting morale. These visits made him extremely popular among the public. But behind the scenes, members of the royal family had concerns.
Edward disliked royal duties and often ignored traditional protocols.
He preferred a glamorous social life filled with parties, travel, and relationships with married women from high society. His father, King George V, reportedly once said, "The prophecy will be fulfilled." His father, King George V, reportedly once said, "The prophecy will be fulfilled." If anything happens to me, the boy will ruin himself within 12 months. The boy will ruin himself. Few people realized how prophetic those words would become. The turning point in Edward's life came when he met Wallis Simpson in the early 1930s.
Wallis was an American woman born in Pennsylvania who had already lived an unconventional life by the standards of British aristocracy.
She had been married once before and divorced. Her second husband was a British-American businessman named Ernest Simpson. Wallis moved comfortably in elite social circles in London, where she eventually met Edward at a party in 1931.
A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Simpson.
The pleasure is all mine, sir.
At first, their relationship appeared casual. A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Simpson.
The pleasure is all mine, sir.
You have a wonderful sense of humor.
Why, thank you, I try.
I can see that.
But over time, Edward became deeply attached to her. By 1934, many people in royal circles realized the situation had become serious.
Edward was completely devoted to Wallis and spent as much time with her as possible.
Members of the royal family were alarmed.
Wallis was not only American, which already made her unusual as a future queen,
but she was also in the process of divorcing her second husband.
that meant she would soon be twice divorced, with both former husbands still alive. For the British establishment in the 1930s, this was considered completely unacceptable. When King George V died in January 1936, Edward finally became king.
Now he was Edward VIII, ruler of the United Kingdom and head of the vast British Empire.
But instead of distancing himself from Wallis, the new king brought her even closer into his life. He invited her to royal events, private gatherings, and even official functions.
Soon rumors began spreading through the British government and aristocracy.
Many feared that the king intended to marry her.
But the problem was bigger than simple tradition. As king, Edward was also the supreme governor of the Church of England. At the time, the church did not allow divorced people to remarry in church if their former spouses were still alive. If Edward married Wallis Simpson, he would be openly defying the religious institution he was supposed to lead. This meant the romance was quickly turning into a national crisis.
The situation soon reached the British government. Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin realized that the king's relationship could destabilize the monarchy itself. Baldwin consulted leaders across the British Empire, including governments in Canada, Australia, and South Africa.
Their response was clear.
They would not accept Wallis Simpson as queen. Baldwin presented Edward with several options. He could give up the throne for love, or marry Wallis Simpson, but she could not be queen. The final choice was to abdicate completely.
He could end the relationship.
He could marry Wallis and give up the throne. Or he could attempt a morganatic marriage, where he remained king but Wallis would not become queen.
However, the British government rejected the third option.
They believed the British public would never accept such an arrangement.
Edward refused to give up Wallis. And so the crisis deepened.
Interestingly, most people in Britain did not immediately know about the crisis. British newspapers avoided reporting the story, partly out of respect for the monarchy and partly due to government pressure.
But foreign newspapers, especially in the United States, reported the scandal widely.
Eventually, the news spread back to Britain, and the public began realizing their king might abandon the throne. The situation had become impossible to hide. The monarchy faced one of the greatest constitutional crises in its modern history. By December 1936, the pressure on the king had become overwhelming. Edward was forced to make a choice between the throne and the woman he loved. On December 10, 1936, he signed the official document giving up the crown. His words became one of the most famous royal statements in history. The event became known as the Abdication Crisis of 1936. Edward had ruled for only 325 days, making his reign one of the shortest in British history. After Edward stepped down, the throne passed to his younger brother. That man was George VI. In a grand ceremony, he was crowned before the nation. His reign saw the country through its darkest hours. George had never expected to become king and was known to struggle with a severe speech impediment. Yet history would place him in an extraordinary position.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds. The British Empire and its Commonwealth stand united.
His daughter, the young Princess Elizabeth II, would eventually grow up to become one of the most famous monarchs in world history. None of this might have happened if Edward had remained king. After leaving the throne, Edward was given the title Duke of Windsor. Here, he and Wallis Simpson embraced their new life in a romantic French wedding. In 1937, he finally married Wallis Simpson in France. However, the royal family refused to grant her the title Her Royal Highness. The couple spent much of their lives living outside Britain, mainly in France. In 1937, they even visited Nazi Germany and met with Adolf Hitler, an event that sparked criticism and suspicion. During World War II, the British government appointed Edward as governor of the Bahamas. For the rest of his life, Edward remained a fascinating and controversial figure, the king who gave up everything for love.
If you enjoy uncovering the secrets, scandals, and mysteries hidden inside royal history, type Royal Hidden Stories in the comments so we know you're part of the kingdom. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories about the secrets history tried to hide.